a realist. So when I was making the choice about continuing into the family business path, one of the calculations I was making was, you have something that is quite successful. Do you have the vision and do you have the guts to go into it and work with it?
I think this is super relatable. Tell me a bit more about the way that you navigated the complexity, because
Andreas Spyrou,
Director of ASG Leasing,
and the #1 fleet owner
in Cyprus.
all your operations are really heavy in operations, and in Cyprus comes with unique challenges as well. Tell me a bit more about fleet management.
It's easy to pick. Big international companies came in as a competition. So we need to up our game and we need to do it every day, every month, every year in order to be the best, in order to be competitive.
I'm having some really interesting conversation with some amazing brands, and we're talking exactly about this. Hello, and hello again. Welcome to another episode of Made in Cyprus, big business stories from a tiny island. And today we have a really special guest and a friend of mine, Andreas Spyrou.
Hello, Martin. Thank you for having me today.
You are a busy man. You are involved into ASG Leasing, which is part of the Andreas Spyrou Group. You're one of the key people behind the Limassol Marathon, the Larnaca Marathon. You've been in events a long time. You traveled a lot. You studied abroad. You grew up in Limassol. It's a different place now, isn't it?
It is totally a different place. We can certainly say that Limassol continuously changed throughout the decades, but the last decade was very special for Limassol. It has changed a lot. New people, new businesses, new opportunities. It's a great city to live.
What was it when you were growing up?
It was more of a traditional Cypriot city, whatever that means. It was more family-oriented. It was more community-oriented. I'm not saying that these values have been lost today, but you could feel that it was a smaller place, or at least the things you could do or the opportunities were less. In that sense.
And an interesting point of view that I wanna dive deep into immediately is that you are part of a group that is a family business, right? It's been there for a long time, 40, 50 years.
More than 40 years. 1977, the first action of my grandfather.
So it's a long time. So was being in a family business a choice? Or was it a drafted path, or is something that you decided you wanted for yourself?
That's a good question. The truth is that the path was always there.
Yeah.
The path was drafted. I made the choice to follow that path. Yeah. It was a conscious choice. I knew that I was going to get implicated in the business, and I liked that scenario. But it was a choice I made after a lot of thinking, and after the question I asked myself was, what would you like to do? Would you like to become a businessman? If yes, would you like to work in Cyprus? If yes, would you like to continue what your father and your grandfather has started? And obviously, I have answered yes to all these questions, and here we are.
And that's such a common story in Cyprus, isn't it? A lot of businesses are coming from a family background, right?
It's a very common story. The basis on which the success of today was built. The basis of today's success was built by the Cyprus family businesses. There was a lot of difficult and slow development for the country and for the city, which was achieved through these businesses. And because I know a lot of people who are in the same situation with me, it's a difficult choice not to continue what your father or your grandfather has begun. Keep in mind that you are born and raised in this environment. You are proud of the business. You hear all day about the business. You hear about the troubles. You hear about how we got over business troubles. You hear about the success. It's an everyday.
You're part of it since the crib, in a way.
Exactly, literally, since the crib. My memories go back since I was 4 or 5 years old about the business.
But in Italian we have a say, which I don't remember exactly how it says, but it says friends and family far away from business.
We have it in Cyprus as well.
But it's not working out.
There is some wisdom in that, but running a family business is a tricky operation. It's a tricky business.
Yeah.
And you need to have some rules, and you need to have some principles and follow them.
I want to go into that. I want to tell me a bit more about like the ways that you navigated the complexity, because I think this is super relatable, because as you said, the traditional business fabric of the Limassol business ecosystem was family. What are the pros and the cons, and how did you navigate it? Because you also came back from abroad, right? So you carried a lot of baggage as well, and I guess you became a different person when you were abroad.
Totally. The international experience, the abroad experience was fundamental for what I am today. And looking back, sometimes I won't say I regret it, because you can't really regret.
But there is always that what if.
Yes, the road not taken. I could have done a few more years abroad. But the reality is that, because you asked before, was the choice, was the path? I remember I finished my final exam, and along with my flatmate, we bought the cardboard boxes, we put our stuff in, and within 2 weeks, we were back in Cyprus working.
Wow.
So it was a choice. Now, the pros and the cons you asked about family business, or how do you navigate? Let's begin with the pros. You have a path which it's clear, and you need to take advantage of it. You need to start walking in it, and you need to understand how you can expand it and develop it.
Yeah. The base is there.
The base is there. I am basically blessed by the fact that the base was there. Let's say the car rental business was there. Let's say the Limassol Marathon in its primal form was there. And then we started building, because I'm not alone, we started building on those foundations, mainly, and this applies especially for the Limassol Marathon, from my experiences abroad. So the Limassol Marathon was very basic, let's call it, when I came back to Cyprus 8 years ago. And I really wanted it to evolve into something international based on what I saw in London and in all the traveling I have done. And I remember, especially for the first 5 years, whenever I was traveling abroad, I was looking at stuff, whether it was branding, marketing, ways of doing stuff, and I was taking notes and I was applying them. How, of course, in Cyprus is limited, but I was applying them to the business, and it worked.
Yeah,
it worked.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So one of the pros is that you have a jumping ground, a starting ground that is solidified, on which you can build upon.
The most important.
Yeah.
And again, I'm feeling blessed about this.
Yeah.
And I'm a realist. So when I was making the choice about continuing into the family business path or doing something else, one of the big factors, or one of the calculations I was making was, okay, you have something that is quite successful, it's there.
Yeah.
Do you have the vision and do you have the guts to go into it and work with it?
Yeah.
The risk is big, because you already have something that is successful there. And if you don't have the ambition, or if you don't have the capabilities, or if you are unlucky, it goes from something successful to something not successful, and that's a failure.
Yeah, and that's the damage of the heritage as well, isn't it? Lots of stories, lots of emotionality, and if you had to mention the more complex things to navigate when working with family.
I am lucky not to have complex relations with. So the two CEOs right now is my father and my uncle. I have perfect relationships with them, business relationships and personal. But I suppose the most tricky aspect of working in a business, in a family business, would be the personal relationships within the family. Fortunately, in our case, everything is as clear as it can be.
Yeah.
Therefore, we focus on the business and on our goals and on what can happen and what the
Yeah.
next steps are.
But if it's not clear, you're carrying those baggages of those issues back into work, and then vice versa, and that's
We saw lots of movies about huge businesses or dynasties that got destroyed because of family feuds, right?
Yeah. No, it's really interesting, and like my personal stories with families in family business in Cyprus, and I mean, obviously, in your case, I think you're lucky that you have a father and uncle that are young-minded and they're business savvy, but sometimes can be hard for second generation to bring change. Isn't it? Even if they traveled, they went abroad, they have new ideas, they want to do new things differently. But sometimes in some businesses, the older generation stays in and retain control for a really long time.
In our case, the second generation did bring change, but if it was difficult or not, I think you should call my father or my uncle to ask them, because I am the third generation.
Yeah.
I believe that as the generations move on and as the years move on,
easier.
it becomes easier. I see that the current directors, my father and my uncle, at this point, they are more open-minded and they know that the younger generation might know something else. Of course, they give guidance. Of course, they give their input. And the reality is that me as a third generation, I want their guidance and I want their input. And sometimes I want their validation about stuff that I feel pretty confident about because they have the experience.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of experience. And if you have it there,
Why not use it?
Why not use it? If you see a problem or a challenge or a scenario that played before, why not get the proper feedback?
Yeah. And let's go back to you guys are really busy because you are involved in multiple venture, right? So you have the events, one of the most famous and currently the biggest sport event in Cyprus is the Limassol Marathon, right? You have the car leasing, you've been in mobility for a long time, rental cars before. So tell me a bit about the evolutions that the company went through, how it started and what happened.
So let's start from 2014. 2016. I come back from my studies, and there are three businesses going on. The first one, which is the main business, is Europe Car, which falls into the mobility category. It's a car rental company. The other one is Honeywell Events, which is a MICE, Meetings, Incentives, Conferences and Events company. And the third one is the Limassol Marathon by itself. I choose to work day to day on the Limassol Marathon. By 2019, I go into Honeywell Events as well, MICE. We did together the rebranding, if you remember. So I was basically into the events business, doing the largest sports event in Cyprus and doing big corporate events for international companies in Cyprus. I wasn't into the mobility part day to day. The mobility part was 100% focused on tourism. Then COVID came.
Yeah.
And that's where the action and the interesting part of the story begins. Because when COVID came, we parked 2,000 cars in our airport parkings, and we didn't know when the next flight would come.
I can't imagine, like your guys, like from day to night went to zero.
We canceled the marathon 10 days before it was supposed to happen. Everything paid, tickets sold, sponsorships closed, everything 10 days before. And all of the business for Honeywell Events got canceled. And again, no traveling, no events. So we had three businesses which were established, which were, if not number one, within the top businesses in their sectors in Cyprus, and we had no business to do. But that's where the magic happened. We got together, the family, and through that crisis, we diversified our mobility services, and we created ASG Leasing, which is leasing to corporates and individuals. We created ASG Cars, which is sales of our second-hand cars from our fleet. We created Right Now, which is the first and sole car-sharing company in Cyprus, and we merged with the guys who do the Larnaca Marathon, created 11 Blue events. And now we're doing both the Limassol Marathon and the Larnaca Marathon. So we came out of the crisis stronger and more diversified.
Yeah. So if there is another of this situation, then it will be better off in a way.
Let's hope it won't be, but the reality is that the next crisis eventually will come.
Yeah.
So you always need to be diversified and be ready to it. I'm very proud about how we reacted and what we managed to do during the COVID crisis, because we went from a business that was wholly oriented in tourism. We diversified, and we now feel more confident, and of course we're bigger.
No, it's. I mean, I cannot even imagine going from doing business just fine on Monday and on Tuesday. it's all gone.
Looking back to it now, it was so shocking that it wasn't shocking at all.
It felt unreal. Yeah.
Yes, it was like a flight or fight situation, and we decided to fight, but we didn't make the choice. It was natural. It came natural.
Yeah.
So we have 2,000 cars. We need to sell them. How do we sell them? Build a brand, build an operation for selling second-hand cars. This guy comes, he wants to buy 40 cars. I ask him why. He tells me he has this idea for a car sharing company. We do it together. We ask ourselves, we are experts and we're number one in renting cars to tourists. Can we rent cars to Cypriots as well? Can we rent cars to companies? Yes. Let's do a leasing company. And that's how it went.
It's brilliant. But like I think you all your operations are really heavy in operations. And in Cyprus, we know that that comes with unique challenges as well. So tell me a bit more about that, about fleet management, about this massive sport event as well with the Limassol Marathon, specifically related to the challenges of Cyprus.
Okay, let's take the Limassol Marathon first. The challenge is that it is easy to pick. It's easy to, it was quite easy once you did the right things, once you created the right product, once you found the right pricing, once you brought in the right suppliers or the right sponsors. I'm not going to say easy, but we feel like we have attracted the maximum amount of Cypriot runners, and now we need to create new runners. So become more educational or help develop the running community in Cyprus, and also attract international runners. And that means that we need to up our game significantly, consistently every year in order to compete with another 1,000 running events in Europe. The same applies, in a way, the same applies with car rental. In leasing, where it is more internal, more Cypriot, big international companies came in as a competition. So we need to up our game, and we need to do it every day, every month, every year, in order to be the best, in order to be competitive. Those who are not competitive in today's Cyprus will eventually vanish. The years that you could be slow, or you could say, let's not get better today, we'll get better tomorrow, have gone.
Oh man, I cannot disclose the conversations I'm having now, but I'm having some really interesting conversation with some amazing brands, and we're talking exactly about this. How there was less choice, less competition, massive flywheel effect, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of like going through. And now in Cyprus, specifically in Limassol, in the last 3 years, everything happened. Everything is in here. If you had three competitors, you probably have 6. Mm-hmm. And some of them are also really good, really talented, really strong, internationally savvy brands and businesses that made you adapt or fucking die. Huh?
Yeah, you adapt or die. And okay, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I know that it increases my risk as a businessman, but if you made the conscious decision to become a businessman, it means that you like this.
Yeah.
And I like it. It excites me.
Me too. It's adrenaline, isn't it?
Yes, it's adrenaline. And it's also good for the overall economy. It's good for the industry that you work in. Competition is good.
100%. One of the things that I never understood is why Italy killed Uber. Is one of the things that I never understood, because there is such a strong lobbying towards the traditional taxi drivers, right? They got protected because Uber came and they felt threatened. And I'm like, who protects me or you, normal businesses? Who's going to do that type of decision in there? And I found it highly unfair for all the other businesses, because us, if there is a new competitor coming on tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, we have to adapt.
Yeah. Talking about challenges in Cyprus reality, the biggest challenge and the biggest danger to every business is how slow the government, the authorities, those who make the rules, understand the game, and thus how slow they create the right environment for fair competition.
Yeah.
And this applies to events, this applies for the marathons, this applies for car rental. Uber is a classic example for Italy, but we have something similar in Cyprus as well with our taxi situation. There are monopolies, and I'm not talking just about the taxis.
No.
There are monopolies that need to be broken. We're living in 2024. It's not the time for monopolies. These sort of things have been sorted out in the rest of Europe or the rest of the developed world decades ago. I don't understand why we're still talking about them. So the biggest challenge every business faces, and the most frustrating factor on everyday business, is the incapability of our government or authorities. I'm not talking politics here, I'm talking in general, of our government or authorities to adapt to these new realities, to this new environment. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, to be fair with you, like it's very hard to keep up at the pace of Cyprus. Like I've been here 7 years, and things change. But in the last 3-4 years, like it's been an incredible change.
I agree with you. The change was fast, was rapid, but that doesn't justify.
No, for sure.
Yeah. We don't need to. I don't know if we changed the question, but continuing what I was saying, yes, the change is rapid, the change is real, but we don't need to discover something new in Cyprus. All the solutions have been discovered and have been applied
elsewhere. Yeah.
We just need to bring them in. It's easy.
Yeah, and I love about that, because a lot of our guests also talk about how Cyprus is the perfect test market. It's kind of smaller, you know. If you fuck up, it's not that damaging as in bigger scale. You know, you can ramp up things slowly. If you penetrate the market, it's much easier with the word of mouth to have the ripple effect as well.
Your guests are right, and they're discussing this. Can you imagine the potential of Cyprus if we really created the environment where big companies could come in and test ideas?
Yeah.
Could you imagine the job creation, the wealth creation, the transfer of technology know-how to local businesses?
Yeah.
It's amazing. But we talk about it and we don't do it.
Yeah.
Or the private sector does it.
Yeah.
And does it pretty good, but it's because the private sector has an incentive and it's made up of ambitious people.
100%. I remember back in the days I prepared this talk about on the power of brand and the difference between politicians and CEOs, and how CEOs are nowadays expected to do something is because it's meritocratic. Mm-hmm. They have the budget. It's a longer lasting position as well, and if they fail, they fail. They pay the consequences. Whether on the other hand, if you flip it on the politician, you know, it's not necessarily meritocratic, right? You get elected and you go up there. They're usually people that are disconnected from what is happening right now in businesses. They might come from a business background, but that was a long time ago. They have a mandate. Finish the mandate is it's someone else's problem, and they don't even have the resources and the budget to apply fast change. You know.
And most importantly, their incentives are altered.
Yeah.
In the sense that if I was a politician, if I was, let's say, a member of parliament, and my constituents were expecting from me, or they would value me at the end of my term on what measures I took to make business easier in Cyprus, then I would have done that. But unfortunately, a big part, obviously the majority of the population, has different criteria on evaluating our authorities at the end of those 5 years. And if we don't change that aspect, nothing will change. I don't want to sound pessimistic. I'm very optimistic about Cyprus and Limassol. But this is the number one problem, challenge, name it whatever you want.
No, I agree, because I think Cyprus is in a terrific place the last couple of years in terms of the things that are happening business-wise and the type of international people we attracted and the type of companies and the brands that I see. You know, we are Mitzi and Larotzi, right? If I think about it, and every time it shocks me, we are half of the island. Imagine if you were the whole island. It will still be smaller than the region in Italy I grew up, but there is so much stuff happening in terms of number, in terms of business as well. But as you said before, there is only as much as the private sector can do alone without having the better backing.
Since you mentioned that, the other biggest challenge or problem, shadowy problem, because we don't see it in everyday lives, but one day it will come and bite us, is the fact that the Cyprus problem remains unsolved.
Yeah, we talk about it, but there is...
Yeah, you talked about it a few times in your podcast.
But there is nothing...
We talk in privately, but we haven't put down the problem in business terms, in economic terms. We didn't allow the people to understand the business potential, the wealth potential, the reviewing all the bad situations or the bad processes that the government is running on. All these things will start from zero.
Yeah.
We'll turn the page.
Yeah.
We could build a great thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we set the problem in through a spectrum of nationalism and zero-sum game. They win, we lose. We win, they lose. As if we can't share a win or we can't share a loss.
Yeah. I know. It's fascinating. You know, one of the things that I learned is, like, a guest of this podcast as well is Steven and Burak from Social Tech Lab. They have a startup incubator into the buffer zone, and their philosophy is to use entrepreneurship as a vector of bringing people together. How making money together all of a sudden makes you forget about the cultural differences.
But it's obvious.
No.
And this is the key. This is the key, and once the people understand the potential, I believe there will be a huge shift in the perspective or what people think about the Cyprus problem.
Do you think it will happen in our lifetime?
I'm an optimistic person, so I will say yes. No, seriously now, I think we will need to make a decision in our lifetime, and it's not going to be too long from now. I mean, we will need to make a decision within the next 10, 15 years. And when I say a decision, we will need to solve the problem one way or another. We will need to conclude on an arrangement, whether that is a unified Cyprus or a divided Cyprus or a hybrid version or whatever they want to call it, is different. But in a world that is divided into blocks, and in a world where the discussion now is AI, and all these new technologies and development, international development will come very fast in ways we do not understand yet. We cannot just ignore the problem. We need to take sides, and we need to handle our problems.
It's an anchor, ultimately.
It's an anchor, yes. I mean, we need to make a decision. No. And I hope that the younger generation will take the lead and affect that decision, because the older generation either doesn't want the problem to be solved because it was there for so long that it became a reality for them, or those who were once, let's call them romantics, or they were progressives and they wanted to do it, I think they lost their hope. Their hope, yes.
And in your circle of friends, what is the vibe?
Well, in my circle of friends, the vibe is that we need a unified island, and we have no problem living with the people in the other side, whether those are Turkish Cypriots, and we understand that if we're going to unify the island, there will be people who are not Turkish Cypriots and they're Turkish, but the pros are so much more than the cons.
Yeah.
It's
It makes totally sense.
but my friends or my circle, it's not the majority. We
Yeah.
need to go out and pass them, or the people who watch us, the business people or the startup people, are not the majority. We should not fall into the trap of thinking that we are the majority. We need to go out and make the everyday people sounds a little bit condescending. To make
The population,
everyone, the population, to make everyone understand the potential,
No.
the economic potential. That's the key, I think.
And there is another interesting topic that I wanna pick your brain in, because like as someone that has been here for a long time, but also has been out of here for a long time, and you work with international company with events as well. You bring people from all over the world, right? So we spoke about this in this show for a long time on the particular value proposition of Cyprus, good lifestyle, good for business and everything. But I also want to touch into the influx of foreigners into the island and into Limassol recently. Pre-pandemic, after pandemic, now there is a Middle East conflict, there is the Ukraine conflict, so we had even more. How do you personally feel about this new Cypriots in a way, right? New expat community, which is like massive, growing by the month.
Personally, I enjoy it. I see these people, most of them at least, as people who came in and they're willing to put energy, put labor, put money to build their lives here. We have new restaurants, we have new events. You had a lot of people here. Imagine, so you had my friend Stylianos here.
Yeah.
Reflect can be organized because all these companies came to Cyprus.
Yeah.
We had, a month ago, we had Bionics Festival, which was an amazing 3-day festival in Limassol. 7 years ago, we couldn't even imagine that something like that would happen in Cyprus. We have new venues like IT Quarter or like Cola. We have the casino. We have new restaurants. We have the Cyprus International Theatre Festival. I saw a play with John Malkovich in Cyprus 3-4 months ago. This is stuff that we couldn't even imagine not 10 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So personally, I like it and I endorse it. I understand that rapid change can make many people anxious. I get it. But let's give it time. This huge influx came in, 3 years ago? It is a big change for Cypriots. I told you, for Limassol especially. 20 years ago, Limassol was much smaller. What we knew does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
It is natural that this will create tensions, social tensions. Yeah. The question, the real question, is how do we handle these tensions? And I think Cypriots, and especially people of Limassol and the city of Limassol, is a place where everyone is welcome, and these tensions will eventually be resolved.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Limassol is, for many decades now, the house of Cyprus's shipping industry, one of the most international industries on the island. We have been on the forefront of tourism, Limassol, for many decades. We have been in the forefront of accommodating. Sorry?
Halloumi making.
Of course. Of accommodating people. We had the Lebanese in the 80s.
Yeah. Armenian communities.
Armenian communities. So it's not new what we're experiencing now. It's
it's an island, right?
Yes, it's just much more intense.
I mean, genealogically, there is not a Cypriot AB type, right? There was Venetians, there was Arabs, there was Turks. Like there's been a bit of everything in the island for a really long time.
There's a big conversation going on about the identity of Limassol, that the identity is changing.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear this argument,
Yeah.
I'm dazzled because, first of all, what was our identity? What is this identity? And how has it changed? Every person thinks of the identity of Limassol as a different thing. And if we try to hang on into something that only exists in our imagination, we will lose the train. We need to keep evolving. We need to keep developing. We have this great blessing throughout all this bad stuff that is going on around us, that people, international people, come in from all cultures. Do you understand that we have Lebanese people, Israeli people, Ukrainian people, Russian people, all living here, and there's no problem?
Yeah.
And they create stuff together.
Yeah.
This is unique.
Yeah.
And we need to be proud. We have to be proud of it.
It's a beautiful way of putting it. I never thought it that way. It is for a place that lives 60 years of unresolved conflict, let's say. We are actually a fertile ground for cross-cultural collaboration.
This is how crazy Cyprus is. Very,
very weird. It's very beautiful. But going back to your identity, I love don't get me wrong. I love what is happening in Limassol, right? I love the skyscrapers. I love what is happening. I don't think we are building nearly enough infrastructure. We want to house new people, but I haven't seen one single road being built. Problem for another time. Problem from another episode.
Maybe you do a podcast with the mayor.
Maybe I'll get him here. But how do you see personally the future of Cyprus? Where should we focus? Because listen, change is good, but there is that famous Kubler-Ross change curve, right? Change happens. People absolutely hate it. They go into a panic mode. But ultimately goes up, and you're higher up than you were at the beginning. Where should we focus? You think for a better future?
We should focus on two things. We should focus on, at least with regard to all these international people and money coming in.
Yeah.
We should focus in bringing these people, welcoming these people, and welcoming these investments, and welcoming this money in our country or in our city. And we need to make sure that part of those investments goes into actions that will ease the inequality that will necessarily occur as development, as wealth is created, inequalities rise. It is the government's job or the society's job, put it as you want, to make sure that everyone gains out of it. For example, yes, so many new jobs, high-paying jobs have been created in Limassol, but we have a housing problem.
Yeah.
And it's real.
Yeah.
Yes, we have so much nice stuff going on, but the traffic is insufferable now.
Yeah.
So the solution is not to end development.
Yeah.
The solution is to trace the problems and solve them.
No, I love that. And I think in London, with every new luxury development, there has to be a percentage of those houses allocated for affordable living.
Not, of course, this is one step, but okay, now this is a brainstorming session. But imagine that for every new development, there was a provision for parking space, underground parking space, or there was a provision for green areas, or there was a provision for affordable living, or there was a provision for the bigger projects to create parks or to create common usage space. That we would have been a paradise by now.
Miami.
Yeah, but these cities, Miami or Singapore or whichever city you think as alpha city, they had their problems and they managed to solve them.
Yeah. There was a plan.
There
though.
was a plan, and if there wasn't one was created
Yeah.
as a solution to a problem.
Εμείς δεν έχουμε plan, I think.
No,
I
we
like
don't.
the way I see the city expanding and what is happening. We are just making money. I think we are in that phase of the development and the economy where we want to cash in. Allah, there is clearly not an urbanization plan.
Okay, so if we don't make up a plan, we'll have the theory of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
People will stop, will not be an attractive destination anymore.
Yeah.
But I think we're smart enough to at least create a plan, at least on the go, to solve our problems,
Yeah.
because we understand that what we have now is unique and it's great. So we need to protect it.
Mate, I want you in politics. I will vote for you.
Thank you, but I chose business.
What's next for you then? What are you focusing right now?
Right now, my number one priority is to, business-wise at least, is
Yeah.
to consolidate all these new ventures that we created
Yeah.
3 years ago through the crisis.
Yeah.
You understand they were not created in one day. So we're still in the process of establishing them or building them. So as a company, we're focusing now on finishing them, at least on their first form, and then consolidating them into one single brand, and we take it from there.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for your time, Andrea. Lovely conversation. Thank you so much. These are the new phases of business that Cyprus need, and I think your mentality is what gives the future of Cyprus and Limassol, good hope. That's
Thank
what
you.
we need.
Thank you, Martin, and keep up with the great work.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
See you next time, everyone. Thank you very much.